Thank you for joining us today at Wildly Undivided. If you enjoy these studies, hit the thumbs up and subscribe.
Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Life with or without people. Would you guys prefer to have people or prefer not to have people? I'm curious. If they're what? Good people. We like good people, we don't like what? Bad people. And bad people are just people who make our life hard, which can be good people who just make life hard. It's like your kids. Like I could just do life without my kids, even though I love them. I don't have kids. So the author of Ecclesiastes is going to go through some scenarios that is difficult. Like life is difficult. And a lot of times it's because of bad people. But you know what? We need each other. Life alone is also bad. It's not good. Let's get into it. Verse 1. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors, there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. What is he talking about? It's people who are being oppressed, to be pushed down, to be pushed around, isolated, taken advantage of. And it says this, I looked around, and behold, all of the oppression. Look at how people are treating people. And the people who are crying are victims. They are the oppressed. And there is no one to help them. There is no one to comfort them. It carries the idea that when you're a victim, you're alone. When you travel in a group, and he'll get into this, it's harder to take advantage of people. It's very much what you were talking about. That here's this man in authority, and when he gets you alone, he talks down to you and treats you like trash, and he pushes you around. But when he's in a group setting, he turns tail and runs away because he doesn't like feeling powerless. And so what he says is there are people who are being oppressed. There are people who are not being taken care of, and actually worse than that, they are being attacked and isolated. So their oppressors, on the side of their oppressors, there is power. They have authority, they have weapons. It's very much like seeing an old lady walking down the street and this guy walks up with a gun and robs her. It's just shocking. It's so beyond what should be taking place. There's so much evil. And he touched on this in chapter 3, in verse 16. He said, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, even there was wickedness. And in the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every matter in every work. God is going to judge because those who should be judging properly are not, and they're oppressing people and they're taking advantage of people. This carries the idea of an unjust justice system. Judges who are not pleading the cause and defending the defenseless and the weak and the helpless, but they're taking bribes. They're being swooned by powerful politicians, and they themselves are the oppressors. They have power and they have authority. And this is something that really bugs the author of Ecclesiastes. He really hates it and he can't stand it. So he goes on to say, verse 2, I thought the dead who are already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. Why is he saying that? What is he saying? At least you're dead. At least you don't have to deal with the oppression of this world, of evil and wicked people taking advantage of weak and helpless and innocent people. At least you're dead. It's better to be dead, is what he says, than to live with bad people. But he doesn't stop there. He keeps going in verse 3. But better than both is he who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. It's better to have not been born. That's not a biblical perspective, okay? This is a guy who is very depressed. He's really struggling with life under the sun. We have to remember that this isn't him being lauded or approved of, right? This isn't the Bible saying that this is good. It's just his experience and his despair. He's like, you know what? If it's better to have died and no longer have to deal with life, how much more so to have never been born and to never experience the evils of this world. We'll talk about that when we get to the application, and we'll talk about what the Bible says about never being born. It's better to have not been born. That's a biblical approach, but it is not for the average person. It's not for the good people. Not that there are all that many good people. It's the children of God that I mean. Verse 4. Then I saw that all toil or all work and all skill in work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and striving after wind. What do we call it when you're always looking at your neighbors and you're trying to beat them financially? Keeping up with the Joneses. Is that a biblical concept? It's not promoted as a good concept, but it is a biblical concept. It says it right here. I saw that everything we work for comes from a man's envy of his neighbor. Keeping up with the Joneses. So the moral of the story is this. I have 3 wonderful kids. I know, I'm making stuff up. My goodness, you guys. Everybody looks at me like what? You have 3 kids? It's an analogy. I have 3 wonderful kids and I drive this little sedan, but my neighbor, he's got 5 kids, a smoking hot wife, and he drives a gnarly Tundra. I now need to have more kids. I need to now have a new truck. But the concept is this. I look at my neighbor and I covet his life. This is a breaking of the 10 Commandments. Do not covet your neighbor's wife, their servants, their things, their donkeys, all the things. Don't look at your neighbor with envy, longing to be or to have what they have. This is what he says. When you do that, you waste your life. When you work and you strive and you fight and you sweat because you envy your neighbor, it's chasing after wind. It's futility. It doesn't amount to purpose and meaning in life. Now, quite a big shift here, right? So he says, first we're living with the oppression of our oppressors and the oppressed. Now we're living with what? Our neighbors, and we're envying them. So life with bad people is not good. Life with other people that I envy is not good. And he goes on and he says, verse 5, the fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. What does that mean, to fold your hands? When do you fold your hands? When you stop doing things. When you're done working, you get home and you just cross your arms, you fold your hands. You go to bed and you just fold your hands. The concept is of laziness, exactly. Doing nothing. So how is it that you would eat your own flesh? By doing nothing. You starve. Exactly. If you are not actively pursuing food, what do you eat? Yourself. Your body will break itself down. Do you know what osteopenia is? It is the stage before osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is a thinning of the density of bones. So you have dense, strong bones, or you have thin, fragile bones. Osteoporosis is fragile bones. Osteopenia is the beginning of that process. Your body, when it does not receive enough nutrition, particularly calcium, your body goes to your bones and strips the calcium from your bones. 50% of women have osteoporosis. 50%. Because most women in our culture are told, don't eat so much food. So now we're malnourished and we're literally consuming ourselves. Another way of doing it is your body eats fat but it goes after muscle before it goes after fat. So, this is a side note, it's better to eat properly and to eat enough. You actually need to eat a lot more than you think. You just need to stop eating trash and start eating real food. So, by not eating, when you're fasting, you eat and consume the calories that already exist in your body. Where do you think you get vitamins that your body needs to produce and make things? It'll pull it from every source it can find. If it needs amino acids, it breaks down your muscles. If it needs calcium, it breaks down your bones. Laziness, doing nothing, folding your hands and deciding to live the easy life kills you because you eat and destroy yourself. Your body literally consumes itself to death. Verse 6. Better is a handful of quietness and peace than 2 handfuls of strife, toil, and striving after wind. What is he talking about? There's a phenomenon in our culture where you have a kid and within 6 weeks, mom is back at work. So now you're paying for daycare and the money that you're bringing in is generally going to daycare. And so you're not really growing financially. And so it's as if you've taken toil and strife and difficulty into your life and you've brought 2 handfuls of struggle. And instead, you could have not returned back to work, endured some financial difficulty, and yes, struggled, but at least you'd have a little piece of quietness, a little piece of peace, P-I-E-C-E versus P-E-A-C-E. So 1 handful of quietness is so much better than a whole armful or 2 handfuls of difficulty and stress. And so another concept that we can relate this to, if you have potential to go out and work, to get raises, to move into promotions, to move up in the echelon, there's a level where you no longer have peace and all you have is toil. You might make $700 an hour, but that's 2 fistfuls of struggle and difficulty. But if you made $20 an hour, you'd have this little handful of peace, comfort, and quietness. You wouldn't have all the things of the world, but you also wouldn't have all the stress and difficulty and pressure. And so recognizing the true value of what we do, it can't be about the money. It needs to be about the peace. Does it bring peace into your life? Is it better to have less of this world, to have more peace in your life? 1 to 2. 1 handful of peace is far greater than 2 handfuls of difficulty. 7 and 8. Again, I saw vanity under the sun. One person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. What is he talking about? Verse 7, he says, one person who has no other people. He doesn't have a son or a brother, and there is no end to his toil. So he sets it up by saying it's a person with no one. It's probably one of the most difficult situations because that is when you most likely get taken advantage of, right? Widows and orphans is a very pinpointed people group that God is very concerned with because they don't have anybody. They're isolated, they're alone, and it's difficult. And so he asks the question, he's like, do you give yourself over to be satisfied with riches? Because that's what he says about this person. He's like, I see this guy, and this is where Charles is getting at. He's like, I see this guy over here, and something that we need to understand about work is work actively kills us. We die to serve and do our jobs. And I think that's where women don't understand and men do, that men feel like they are sacrificing their life's energy to provide for their family. And then women don't see it that way. And so the men are like, I'm giving you everything I have. And women are like, all you do is work. The toil here is that he's not working for his family. He's working for riches, just for the sake of money. And he's like, what purpose is that? You don't have anybody to give it to. You don't have an heir to your toil, to your life's effort. Nobody will receive the benefit of it. And so life alone is difficult and it's hard. And he sees life with no one and he says, that's vanity. We all need someone. And that's why he goes to the next one and he says, look, verse 9, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. Now, this is interesting because this talks about team synergy. Team synergy. So if I can accomplish a certain amount of work in 8 hours, let's say we call that 100% performance for me, and you can work for 8 hours and produce 100%, you would say the two of us together for 8 hours would produce 200%? It doesn't. It actually produces 300%. Because we work together, our energy and our effort is compounding. It's not singular, not double, but triple the benefit and triple the reward. What I am weak at, you are strong. What you are weak at, I am strong. Where there are two, you can have a great reward. He talks about life alone being so difficult. And then he says, look, if you have one close person, it's team synergy. It's very connected. And let me explain that to you. And he goes on and he says, for if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. If I fail, but I'm a part of a team, my failure is supported. If I fail alone, I suffer full consequence. We fall and can rescue each other. Take it to the nth degree, and you have an elderly person who lives alone. We know this picture, and they fall down, and they can't get to the phone. They have a broken hip, and they're physically not strong enough to move. They will die. So we provide them with a helper, that they should not be alone. Today with technology, we give them the little next life alert. We live with them. We provide for them. But here's the thing, if you don't have children, you don't have that, right? But this is a reality. This is life under the sun. Extraordinarily difficult, right? So where there is two, you fall, somebody can pick you back up. Verse 11 again, if there's two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? This is interesting. If you are in a snowstorm and you lay down by yourself, you can freeze to death. But if you lay down with another person, synergy. You keep each other warm. And you would think, well, wouldn't you both freeze to death? Obviously, there is potential, depending on how extreme the weather is. But generally speaking, you can survive it. Then he goes on and he says, verse 12, and though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken. I'm walking down the road alone, and somebody comes and attacks me. That's a potential 50-50, right? Like, it's him versus me. I'm walking down the road with a person next to me, and somebody comes to attack me. It's 2-1. Chances are in our favor. We can fight them off. So it's talking about self-defense. If you are in this world alone, left alone, you're most likely to be taken advantage of and oppressed. But if you stand together and you have community and a unity, you can defend each other and you can fight back. This is the core of unions. I'm not a union guy. I'm not union at all. I think a union has its place and its purpose, and I think it also doesn't. But there is strength in numbers. That's the whole principle. If I walk down the street, I'm a potential victim. If we all walk down the street, the chances drastically drop that we would be victimized, especially if somebody's carrying. You now have strength in what? Accord. That you have 2 or 3 individual units tightly weaved together, and it is extremely difficult to break it and to take advantage of it. So you have life with none, and you have life with even just one. Having a close-knit community, even just one person, changes the outcome. Now let's talk about life with government, or life in government. 13. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. What are we talking about? It's a comparison. There's 2 different people here. We have a saying, I don't know where it comes from, but it is a very classic American saying. It's what really fashioned our Constitution. It says that power ultimately corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts. Absolutely. Absolutely. Something like that. I butchered it. You can Google it. So, long story short, you have poor, young, and wise. Poor, young, and wise, which those do not typically go hand in hand, especially, I'm a millennial, and I heard about it all the time. Oh, these millennials. These kids nowadays, especially in the trades, right? Now you're starting to get Gen Z in the trades and in the world, and everybody is complaining, okay? We do not see youth as wise people. We look at youth and say, oh, youth is wasted on the young. If I only knew what I knew now, back then. But this person, this young man, this young woman is wise. They are smart, but they have no power, no affluence, no position. And then we see the king. Now the king, obviously, power, affluence, position. But you know what? He's stubborn. He's stubborn. He doesn't listen. He's not all that bright. He is a problem. It is better to have a population of smart, poor people than to have an overwhelming government filled with stupidity and stubbornness. So life in that world is difficult when you have a stubborn king. Now, it's interesting because I think he's talking about Joseph. So I put a question mark. I said, Joseph? Question mark. Listen to this. 14. Why? Because he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. Does that sound like anybody to you? It could be Jesus. Jesus, born in a manger, ascended to the throne of God. There's a man seated on God's throne. But from this person's perspective, it'd probably be a historical figure, and I think it's Joseph. Joseph, who was casted out by his brothers, who was considered to be foolish and proud and arrogant. They thought, we're not going to bow down to you. And so he gets thrown into prison. He gets accused of being a rapist. And he is the worst of the worst. He's been charged with rape, attempted rape. And yet he becomes the king. So I think he's talking about Joseph. So he goes on, verse 15, I saw all the living who move about under the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. He talks about the people as if they're kind of like ants in an ant farm. He's like, I saw all the people. Have you ever seen, you guys all flown? Everybody ever flown in an airplane? You ever fly past like a metropolis and you see all the cars and all the people and you're just like, oh my, just look at them scurrying around. It's fascinating. We're all in a hurry to go nowhere, right? Think about a little ant farm and how they are so active in this little piece of glass, and they carry and they move all the sand and they get all the way down to the bottom, and they're working hard. From our perspective, we look at them and we just think that you're not going anywhere. What are you doing? And this is what he talks about. Look, I saw all the living who move about under the sun along with that youth who is to stand in the king's place. I was just watching all these people, and that young man ascend until the throne. I saw the majesty of this wise youth who one day ruled in power. Verse 16, there was no end of all the people, of all whom he led. Yet those who came later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and striving after wind. Joseph's story. So talking about a wise young man and a foolish king, and then I saw the young man ascend into power. And look, from prison particularly. And he says this, there's no end of all the people of whom he led. It's as if he was the vice president of the United States and the United States ran the world. That's like we were the only place with food, water, and shelter, and Canada came to us, and Mexico came to us, and even China came to us. That's the concept. The whole world went to Egypt in Joseph's time to get food because Joseph stored up food for years. He knew the famine was coming. So this young man who became an old man, a person of high esteem in history, we would say like George Washington's status, Lincoln, all of these masterful historical figures, you know what happens to them? Forgotten. They're forgotten. They're left behind. You know what it says in Exodus chapter 1, verse 8? A king rose up who didn't know Joseph. He didn't know Joseph. So you know what he did? He enslaved the Jews. The peak, the pinnacle, the height of power and authority and wisdom and glory and splendor. He had beautiful children. He had a beautiful wife. He ruled over Egypt with justice and majesty. And it was in vain, because after him came one who did not know. After him, he was forgotten. Okay, so what are some applications we can take away from tonight's study? Obviously, Ecclesiastes 12:13, the end of the matter, the fear of the Lord, there is going to be a judgment to come, right? That's ultimately his point. Psalm 82, I'd like to read Psalm 82. Now, you're going to read about gods. He says, he's taking counsel with gods. The word gods is used for judges, like a courtroom judge. It really has to do with that they are in the place of the judge. That's what makes them gods, the ones who decide right from wrong, good and bad, the just and the unjust, and punishments, right? So verse 1, God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment, as in he holds judges accountable. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I said, you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, like men you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. So the core of what this is it's corrupt. It's a corrupt justice system. And so God is saying, I'm taking counsel to judge you, O judges. I set you in my place to judge for me, to judge what is right and good and true. And you are partial and you judge unjustly. So this is his charge to judges. It is your duty to give justice to the weak, the fatherless, maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, and to rescue the weak and the needy and deliver them from the hand of the wicked. Why? Because they don't have knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. They are sheep plucked off by wolves. and the justice system is there to protect them. God has a very special place for the persecuted and the oppressed. And he says, I will hold in judgment. I will judge because I inherit the nations. I will one day rule over you, and you will give an account to me for the injustice that you have done. So we should care about injustice. We should care about the oppressed. I think the difficulty in our day and age is it says that what is evil will be called good, and what is good will be called evil. That's the true justice. That's the true righteousness, is actually being able to even tell the difference. This is good and this is evil. Because in our day, it's switched. It's a corrupt culture that is at war with God. And so we need to be able to say, no, no, no. We need to judge with righteous eyes and say, that's evil. You are actually oppressing that which is good. If we get into Romans chapter 1, it says they suppress the truth and unrighteousness. First of all, we need to take up the cause of the oppressed because it is God's cause. God's cause is to defend the oppressed, the fatherless, the weak, the helpless.
These studies are recorded live with God's people. We encourage you to find a study in a Bible-believing and teaching church and connect with God's people in God's Word. Have a blessed day.
Now, it is better not to be born. This is fascinating because it's a difficult pill to swallow. The only time this is used in Scripture, as far as I know, I could be wrong, but as far as I know, the only time this is used in Scripture is when Jesus talks about Judas who betrays him. He says, there is one who will betray the Son of Man, and woe to him. It is better that he should not be born than to betray the Son of Man. He says this in Matthew 26:24. We are talking about the son of perdition, the son of destruction, the one who is born for the purpose of hell. Now, this is a very tough pill to swallow. And theologically, I think people do not like the road that it takes, and so people don't like talking about it. But generally speaking, this is the synopsis. There are those who will experience hell, and it is better to have not been born than to go to hell and experience what they're going to experience. Judas Iscariot is the example. Another one is in Thessalonians, another son of perdition is the Antichrist. The only time it says better to have not been born is Judas, but Judas is a type of Antichrist. And the Antichrist to come, the official, like this dude who will be the one to rule over the world, bring world peace for 3.5 years, and then 3.5 years of chaos and destruction, and place himself as God himself. He will declare himself to be God. That person is the son of perdition, born for the purpose of destruction. But I don't think it says it's better for him not to have been born. Just Judas, as far as I know. So really what that means is it's about evil and wicked people. It's not about victims. We have, I think, the despair of a man who is looking around and saying, my heart hurts for them. This is the core of liberality, like liberal politics. It really is rooted in a heart of compassion and care, but it's flawed. It's like loving the child that beats you to death. I gave birth to this baby. This baby grew up into an adult and is now stabbing me. It's that bleeding heart of a mother that cares for that child, even though that child is destroying them. So I understand liberal politics because it comes from a heart of compassion, but it doesn't bring the fruits of righteousness. And I feel like that's where this author is at when he says it's better to have not been born. He really has a heart of compassion for victims, but he doesn't recognize the true value of life. He doesn't balance that in this text. He might do it later. I need to continue to study the book more. But in this text, he doesn't balance that we do have purpose in our life. It is still better to be born, to experience the difficulties and the struggles of this world, primarily because we have such a great opportunity to know God. If we were never born, we would never know him. And it is better to have known him than to never have known him. That is the greater glory. Job 32, verse 1 through 10, we're not going to read it, but it is a very, very good synopsis of being young and wise, and looking around and seeing that older people aren't necessarily always the wisest people. Elihu doesn't speak throughout all the book of Job. And then at the very end, this is what he says. I sat here and I listened to you guys because I thought I'm young. You guys are aged and wise. So I let you speak first. You did not answer Job correctly. You guys are wrong. So I can't contain myself and I'm going to speak the truth. And he blasts everybody. He takes on Job, he takes on all the older men, and he straight tells them as it is. Now God's going to come down and he's going to look at Job and he's going to be like, psh, psh, psh. He's going to smack him around a little bit, but he's like, Job, you're still my boy. I got you, Job. I got you. Okay? But God is going to rebuke all of Job's friends. God is going to be like, those guys don't know what they're talking about. They're fools. But Elihu is left out of the list. He was a young man who thought, I can't speak because I'm young. But wisdom is found at every age. No matter how young or how old, truth is truth, and wisdom is wisdom. It doesn't matter where you are, what you do, when you have the truth, you are wise. You could be the lowest person on the totem pole speaking to the CEO, and if you speak truth, you are the wisest person in that room. So be wise at every age. Next week, we're going to talk about two gods. Jesus says you can't serve two gods. Ecclesiastes chapter 5.